Hi guys, so for this video I'm going to tell you guys the top 15 books you should read this year. And all of these books I've read, and there's never been any doubt that these books are recommended from me. You guys should really look into some of these because these are just some of the best books that I've read this year by far. They're in no particular order. I can't really order books in that way. I can't really say this book is better than the other. They're just all these books are just great, and you guys should really just read them. Let's see. Some of them are on my Kindle, so it's going to take me a while to be able to pull them up. So let's see how that goes. The first book I have on my list is, where is it? See, this is not going off to a great start just because of the fact that I have to pull up these books on my Kindle. And the first book that I have on my list is City of Heavenly Fire by Cassandra Clare, which is the last book in the Mortal Instruments trilogy. Can you see that? It'll be kind of hard to see just because it's on my Kindle. But this is City of Heavenly Fire. This one was a really great book. If you haven't read the other books, read them first, then read City of Heavenly Fire, of course. But it's a whole series, and it's just a great one. And if you guys want to know more about it, just click on my video of the book review for the Mortal Instruments trilogy. Well, I keep saying trilogy. It's not trilogy, but that's the next one, however, is an actual trilogy. But it kind of ties in with City of Heavenly Fire just because of the fact that it's set in the same world. And it is a trilogy. It's a series. And the first, Clockwork Angel. And then, of course, Clockwork Prince and Clockwork Princess, which makes up the series The Infernal Devices, which is a kind of prequel to The Mortal Instruments. It's a really great read. You don't have to have read The Mortal Instruments in order to read The Infernal Devices, but I highly recommend that you do read The Mortal Instruments and The Infernal Devices, just because of the fact that the worlds kind of intertwine with the books. You'll really see it in the last book of Mortal Instruments, but when you read The Infernal Devices after you've read The Mortal Instruments, you get to pick out little things that might happen in the future, or if you read The Infernal Devices before you read The Mortal Instruments, you'll be able to see oh, this pertained to this, and this happened because this happened, and stuff like that. You know, they're just really great reads to have on your bookshelf. And then the next one is Ghost at a Watchmen by Harper Lee. I am a personal big fan of To Kill a Mockingbird. I always have been since I've read it in high school, and I read it in my freshman year of high school. But it was one of the books that'll probably stay with me for the rest of my life, just because it's just one of those great books. And Ghost at a Watchmen is a sequel to To Kill a Mockingbird. It talks about the main character Scout as she's an adult. In To Kill a Mockingbird, she's a child. She's 6 years old. She's 6 years old in To Kill a Mockingbird, but she's 20 or something, 20, 30, and Ghost at a Watchmen. It wasn't very clear how old she was, but she is an adult, and so she's showing in Ghost at a Watchmen, the story kind of shows how things are changing since the first book, and how the main character Scout has to kind of get try to get into the groove of it and realize that the world is changing, and that stuff that may have been true when she was a child probably isn't true when she's older, without giving away spoilers. It's just a really great read. I really recommend it just because of the fact that it's Harper Lee, and she did a really great job with To Kill a Mockingbird. I've seen a lot of different people who didn't really like the book because they say that, the characters weren't like the characters they knew and loved. of course, it's not going to be the characters that, it's not going to be the same kind of characters just because of the fact that it's set so long in the future that, of course, they're going through different changes and they're going through just different obstacles in life that they didn't have when they were a little younger. The next book I read after I read Binge by Tyler Oakley, which I did a book review about it. And it's The Missing Kennedy by Elizabeth Koelher-Pentacoff. I don't even know if I said that right, but The Missing Kennedy. This is a good book for those who love history. I'm a history major in college. I love history. I love reading about history, whether if it's a historical fiction or if it's a nonfiction book. And this one was just a really great read because it talks about Rosemary Kennedy, who is kind of, they call her the Forgotten Kennedy just because of the fact that not many people know much about her. And Rosemary Kennedy, she is one of the kids from the Kennedy family, our President John F. Kennedy's older sister, I believe. And it just talks about how her life was, and for those who don't know about Rosemary Kennedy, is she was kind of eccentric, and she was kind of she was a little more odd than the rest of her siblings, and so her parents had what are they called? Anyway, they had stuff drilled into her brain of phlebotomy, what is it called? But you know what they used to do in mental asylums, and they had that done to get her fixed, and it went wrong, and she had permanent brain damage, and so she spent the rest of her life inside of a nursing facility, and I don't think it was a mental asylum, but I know it was some kind of nursing facility. And this book, the author, her aunt, I believe, was the one who took care of Rosemary Kennedy. And so this book kind of talks about the relationship between Rosemary and the author's aunt. And I guess the author met Rosemary once in a while, so she talks a little bit about her, how she was with the Kennedys. She had exclusive interviews with the Kennedys for this book. It was all around just a great read. It was very entertaining to read. It was really great to learn about Rosemary Kennedy, especially because she inspired a lot of stuff that the Kennedy family did that you guys may not know about, like the Special Olympics. There was other stuff that, her family did because of the fact that Rosemary was the way she was. So that's just a really great read. I really recommend that one for people who love history, just because it's such a great book to read if you love history, and especially for Americans and the Kennedys. The Kennedys are kind of like the royal family, I guess, for us, just because they're so big, and they're just this big family that's so famous, and they're one of their family members was president, and it's just a great it was just a great book to read, all in all. All things aside, it was a great book. The next book is on my Kindle. Of course it is. And this book, I didn't know if I was gonna like it when I first had it, but I ended up really liking it. I binge watched when I first saw the show on Netflix. I binge watched it. It's called Merlin, and it's about it's their own take on Arthurian legends about King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. And so I started looking for different books that pertain to that, and I came across this book. It's called Ever My Merlin. This is the third book. The first book is called My Boyfriend Merlin, which kind of sounds cheesy, which is why I didn't know if I was going to like it, but I bought it off my Kindle, and I ended up really liking it. I read all 3 books about it. I really liked it. It just tied into, the whole Arthurian legend, and it was a modern twist on it, kind of. And it's about a girl named, what's her name? Ryan. And it basically just talks about her adventures when the sword Excalibur falls from the sky, and it just throws everything that she knew about the world into different perspective. And she actually has help from this mysterious guy named Matt, who may or may not be tied to Excalibur and and King Arthur. So it's a really great read for those who really love Arthurian legend like me. I've been looking for other ones. I might find some. I don't know, but I really liked it. It's a very different take on the whole Merlin legend. I don't know much about like Merlin in the sense that I never read anything like much about Merlin from the Arthurian legend. I know a lot more about King Arthur, but this really goes more into depth about Merlin rather than King Arthur. And I like that aspect just because of the fact that I loved the BBC TV show Merlin, which you guys should check that out on Netflix if you haven't already. That one was a great one. I can't stress enough, like, it was just a great book. And the next one is on my Kindle, and this one I read recently. Not that recent, but it was like a few months ago that I read this one. It was like during summer, I think, that I finished it, which was great. I love the author. Like, I can't tell you how much I love the author of this book. And now my Kindle's acting up. But anyway, okay, I'll show you it later. But the book is Blood of Olympus by Riordan. And for those of you who don't know, it's kind of like, I wouldn't say a sequel because it's not talking about the actual characters from the original one, but it's kind of like a sequel to Percy Jackson and the Olympians series, which if you guys don't know what that is, it's basically a modern take on the Greek myths that everyone knows and loves. You know, it talks about a guy, Percy, the Percy Jackson ones. It talks about this boy named Percy Jackson who finds out he's a demigod and finds out that he's sort of the product of this great prophecy that must be fulfilled. And the Heroes of Olympus, it kind of goes into the same way, but it has all new characters of it called Jason, Piper, and Leo. And these three find out that they're also part of this big prophecy that's supposed to be fulfilled. And it's just a great, like, spin-off for those who, like, really liked Percy Jackson. I know that I was ecstatic when I heard that Riordan was making another Greek series, which he's making another one now after this series ended, which I'm just like, Rick, what are you doing? I don't have money for this. But that one was a really great book. It really tied in everything, like not just with the Heroes of Olympus series, but also with Percy Jackson. You know, you hear stuff, like when you go back and read Percy Jackson, you hear stuff that people say is going to come in the future, maybe, and you realize that it actually happened. It happened in Heroes of Olympus, you know. Instead of happening in the Percy Jackson series, it happened in Heroes of Olympus. That was a great read. I was so happy when I got the book and I finished it. I was like, oh my gosh. But it ended on a cliffhanger, which made me kind of mad, which I might talk about that a little later if I do a book review on Blood of Olympus. And the next one, I don't have the actual, like, book that I put down on it. It's a series. I just had the other book for it, but I might just put it somewhere here. But the book is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, which I'm confused on how you say her name, but that's how I say it. That was a really great book, and it's kind of like, it has that Tim Burton feel of it, which I really like because I love Tim Burton, and he's directing the movie to it, which is coming out, I guess, this year on Christmas, which I'm so excited for. Can't express enough my excitement for that movie. But Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children is about a boy named Jacob who's 16, and he finds out that he's part of the peculiar community, which for peculiars, they have different abilities that, like, one of them can have fire in her hand, the other one floats in the sky, the other one is really super strong. There's a lot of different, like, abilities that peculiars have, and he finds out that the peculiar world is in danger, and so he takes it upon himself to interact with these peculiars and kind of save the whole, like, world for it. Which, it's such a great book, but what I found really cool about this book was that a lot of the different, it had pictures in it. Like the author of the book, he loves collecting like vintage photographs, and so with the photographs, he incorporates them into the book, and he incorporates, like, he makes the story kind of work with how these photos are. And so you get to see these photos and you kind of are like, how the heck does he connect all of these together, you know? It's a great read. If you're into like really creepy kind of stories, if you're into like Tim Burton stuff, this is definitely the book for you. Like, no lie, like, I didn't know if I was going to like it just because I'm not a big fan of, like, I haven't read a lot of horror and I haven't read a lot of like creepy novels. I think the creepiest I've gotten is probably Edgar Allan Poe, which everyone loves. But that one was a really good one. The next one I don't have with me at all. It's at my place in SoCal. I'm in NorCal right now, but it's in SoCal, and it's called The Book Thief, and it was just turned into a movie, which the movie was really good, but the book is even better. I'll always say that. The book is usually always better than the movie, but in this one, the main character is a girl. I don't remember what her name is, but this girl kind of ends up stealing books while her like country is in ruins because it's set in World War II, and there's bombings going around her. There's so much stuff going on with the war, but yet she finds solace in the books that she steals, and she kind of like because she's being sent off to somewhere else that she's not used to, she kind of forms a bond with all the people that she meets because of the fact that she loves the books that she steals, and she loves all the books that she has. The next one I don't have with me at all either. It's The Longest Ride by Nicholas Sparks. And before you guys go out and run because it's Nicholas Sparks and it's a romance, this one was really good. I'm a sucker for romance. I've always have been a sucker for romance. And I know there's some people that aren't really keen of Nicholas Sparks, but this book is really good. It follows the same storylines basically as the other Nicholas Sparks books. Girl meets boy, boy meets girl. They like each other, and there's so many complications between it. This one is between cowboy Luke Collins and city girl Sophia. I don't know what her last name is, Sophia, but it was just turned into a movie, and the movie was amazing. It's probably my favorite Nicholas Sparks like movie to date. And it's just a really great like romance novel, especially for like young adults, people who are in college. I'm in college. I felt kind of relatable to Sophia just because of her like perseverance to finish college and how her college kind of struggles with her relationship with Luke, and it's just a great one. The next one I actually have with me. It's another romance kind of. It's If I Stay by Gayle Forman. And I saw this book and I thought it was going to be really, really good. I did think it was really, really good, of course, because it's on this list. But the movie wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. Yes, it's a movie. This is the movie cover. It has Chloe Grace Moretz. Is that how you say her last name? It is beautifully written, and there is another book to it. Like, there's like a kind of sequel to it, which I read and I liked it. There's not much to say other than the main character gets into a coma and she has to decide whether she wants to stay without her parents around, and she has to decide whether she wants to stay and be with her grandparents and her boyfriend, or if she wants to move on with the rest of her family. You know, it just basically comes down to that choice, but there's so much else that incorporates into that because she makes her decision based on the life that she's lived and the memories that she had. And so basically the book outlines her memories of her with her boyfriend and her with her family, and that's when she makes her ultimate decision. I'm not going to say what decision. That's a spoiler, and I don't do spoilers. The next one, I tweeted about this one. It's A Binge by Tyler Oakley, and you guys know I did a book review on this one, and I loved it. If you're a big fan of Tyler, this is definitely a book you need to pick up and read. It's a series of essays written by Tyler that talks about different aspects of his life, stuff that he probably hasn't told a lot of people about. You know, it's happened to him, and he has different pictures in it. Here's one where he's like dancing with the woman. Yeah, work it, Tyler. But that book was really great just because of the fact that I love Tyler Oakley, and it really puts into perspective, like, we don't really know how YouTubers are behind the camera. Like, I could tell you as much as I can about my life, but you probably won't know me as well as you think that you would. You know, and that's just a whole aspect of YouTubers, and that's just something big about YouTubers. You know, you don't really know much about them, but with this book, you get to see kind of an inside look about what goes on in Tyler's mind and what he's been through, and I found myself crying on some chapters because some of the stuff was sad, some of it was really cool, so it was really great. The next one is on my Kindle, and I don't want to show you just because it takes too long, but it's the Chronicles of Vladimir Todd. Now, this book series I read my last year of middle school, 8th grade. I hadn't finished the series until I got all the rest of them, and that was probably my junior year of high school. But I think people kind of forgot about it, but for those who don't know, it's about a boy named Vladimir Todd, and he's a vampire, and he's kind of like just trying to figure out his life while being a vampire, and he finds there's so many threats surrounding him because of the fact that he's not full vampire, he's half vampire, half human, and you know, there's so much stuff that incorporates into that. It's just a great series, especially for those who kind of like middle school books, which I obviously do because I read Percy Jackson, which is aimed at middle school kids. But it's just an all-around good book, and you kind of get that like feel-good feeling that you usually get when you read like books that you read in middle school. You know, it's just one of those books. And the next one is also on my Kindle, but it's Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard, and this one is also by Riordan, who wrote Heroes of Olympus and Percy Jackson. But this one is interesting because this one is about the Norse gods, which come from Sweden, Scandinavia, somewhere in that area. I know they're Norse myths, so Thor, Odin, Loki are some of the few. And I really liked what he did with this one just because of the fact that it was just about the Norse gods, and there's such different aspects of it than the Greek series. And he has an Egyptian series too. They didn't make the list, but he has an Egyptian mythology book too, which I might talk about later in another video or such. But for this one, it talks about one of the characters, Annabeth Chase, in Percy Jackson, talks about her cousin Magnus, who finds out that he's a demigod from the Norse gods. They're not myths in the book. The Norse gods, and he kind of goes on this whole quest to find the Sword of Summer, which is the first one. He finds the Sword of Summer, and he's just destined to be part of a prophecy, which is kind of like Percy Jackson in a way, but it has to do with the Norse myth, and there's so much more mythology having to do with it. The book was kind of slow in the beginning. I admit that. It was a little bit slow in the beginning, but once you really get into it, you know, you just want to know more and more about the world of the Norse gods and how Magnus fits into everything. You know, it's a really great book, and Riordan is an amazing writer, amazing with incorporating all these different myths into modern stories. Like, I don't know how he does it. And everyone who knows Riordan knows that he's a sassy guy, and so a lot of that sass comes onto the page, and it's just a lot of humor, and it's really one of those feel-good books that you want to read, just because of the fact that when you read it, you just feel happy, and you just want to keep reading because it makes you so happy. Okay, so 2 books left, and the next one is one that I just finished. I'm so happy I finished it, and I'm in time to make this video, and it's Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell, and it's a romance novel, of course, but it's kind of different in the aspect that instead of the girl being like she's a misfit and this guy is like totally popular and they come together, they're both kind of misfits and they're kind of both outsiders, but they kind of find themselves drawn to each other and they find themselves falling for each other. And there's a lot of obstacles in their way of their love, which is true for any kind of romance novel. But it's a great book. And for someone like me who's an absolute geek, an absolute nerd, this was totally the romance for me, just because of the fact that both the main characters are huge nerds, music nerds, book nerds, comic book nerds. That's it. That's what they are. And it was just great to see it. And I really recommend that one. Rainbow Rowell was amazing with that book. The last one is by YouTubers, kind of like Binge. But this one is The Amazing Book Is Not on Fire by Dan Howell and Phil Lester. And for those who don't know who Dan and Phil are, they're British YouTubers who live together, and they have a joint gaming channel, and they both make videos on YouTube. They're pretty popular. They're not as popular or well known as Tyler Oakley is, but they're still really good. And this book was good because it gave you a bit of inside look into, it says the inside look into the world of Dan and Phil, which is really cool because I love them. They're really awesome. I love their videos so much. And just having them have a book like this where I get to hear about, like, how Phil's hamster was, Dan's childhood, you don't know much about them. And being able to, like, read this book and see into the life of like, what they are and what they're about is just so great. And I just love it. So that's the end of this video. That's all 15 books that you guys should read. If you guys liked it, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already to my channel. And I promise I won't have a lot of, like, time in between my videos. I'll try as hard as I can, but I'm super busy just with college and getting stuff ready for the next upcoming year. There's just a lot going on, and hopefully I will be able to make more videos soon. So, bye guys.